You know, it's been a while since we visited Kotaku. What kind of cancer are they conjuring up for us to Oh. Oh god, why? Girls fight with their butts and boobs in this wretched new anime. Yes, you heard that right. That's actually a headline. Kotaku strikes again, imposing their politically correct Western sensibilities upon media from the Far East. Don't you just love how people like this get to be the arbiters of what is and isn't racism and or cultural appropriation? Wear a kimono? Well, you're a racist, cultural appropriating scum even when Japanese people say it's okay. But if you see an anime that offends your ideology, it's perfectly valid to criticize and bully it as long as you believe it's mistreating a group you're defending. So, it's not okay to appreciate things from a culture, but it's okay to belittle when you don't think it's progressive enough. I'd also like to point out that this writer is complaining about this anime, yet on the very same site, we have a headline like this, and it's not disparaging the media presented in any way. In fact, it makes it sound like it's supposed to be fun. Consistency. Okay, so let's dive right into the post. When you see a truly awful commercial product, do you ever try to picture the businessmen who made it happen? Who was the suit on the 11th floor of some glassy, gilded skyscraper who bypassed several security officers, took an elevator to a sterile meeting room, sat down with his well groomed colleagues and assistants, and announced, "Yes, definitely. We would love to produce a fighting anime about women smashing their asses and tits together. Very good. Tremendous potential here. Who are you, suit? Can we talk? I have questions about Keijo." Well, first of all, she seems to have a very poor understanding of how business works. You see, as with a good portion of anime, Keijo was originally a manga series, so what more than likely actually happened was that someone recognized the success of the manga and said, hey, we should adapt this into an anime to cater to fans of said manga and expand the viewership of this product to those who may not know about it. She also makes it sound like the only people involved in deciding to turn this into an anime are just a bunch of perverted men. I picture this moment, the shaking hands, the nodding heads. Were they drinking filtered water when they decided that, yes, a sport where no contact is allowed except using breasts and butts was extremely good and, hell, let's get some real solid animators in here? Scribbled on ledger paper over in Osaka, Japan. Was there an obliging secretary's notes on 18 plus girls wearing swimsuits in a dormitory, honing their butt cannon and bust to bust attack skills, learning about life and love? Come on now, this is just filler to bring up her word count and make it look like she actually wrote something. After seeing this post, I actually watched the first episode of this anime for research purposes. So basically, it's about some girls that join and compete in a sport like the Dead or Alive Extreme Volleyball minigame, where you bump your opponent to knock them off the platform into the water. You're limited to using your butt and breasts as weapons, which I imagine would really hurt your breasts, but I guess you kind of have to suspend your disbelief and just go with it. Of course, this is an anime, so you should be doing that anyway, given the fact that it's fictional. And hey, it looks like my Dead or Alive comparison is apt because DOA Extreme is actually getting a swimsuit based on this series. I protest. I don't care that it's well animated. I don't care that the women have discernible personalities. No cookies for you. It is besides the point that Keijo was previously a manga. It could have died in obscurity. Now it's on Crunchyroll. So what she's saying is she doesn't care if it has any positive aspects because it offends her, and that means we can ignore it and pretend it doesn't matter in favor of the narrative. All of the girls introduced so far do seem to have their own personalities and reasons for joining the sport, which, to be quite honest, is more effort than necessary if you were really just going for fan service the anime. In fact, one of the characters mentions that she's concerned about sharing a room with people that have such differing personalities, so obviously the characters learning to get along in spite of their differences is going to be part of the plot. It's almost like stories can be multifaceted and have more than just one focus. A combination of humor, over the top action, and touching moments? That's completely unheard of. Now, about that whole obscurity thing. The manga version of Keijo has been running for 3 years, so apparently it's popular enough to keep going and warrant an anime adaptation. The fact that you're not interested in it doesn't mean it isn't successful, and simply because it hasn't come to the West until now doesn't mean it's obscure. That's a very Western-centric point of view, isn't it? There's a whole world out there outside of the offices of Gawker Media, believe it or not. Oh yeah, Gawker Media's dead. I guess it's called Gizmodo Media Group now. Stupid. In Keijo's first episode, which aired on October 6th, protagonist Nozomi Kaminashi begins attending Seitochi Keijo Training School. Several former judo students hone their ass and tit slamming skills, blasting opponents off floating islands called lands. Yes, they flirt with each other. Of course, their swimsuits are sheer. Yes, it has dorm room shenanigans. It is a thing that exists in a world that is increasingly horrible and full of deplorable things. Okay, this isn't even factually accurate. Only one character was presented as a former judo student. The main character is a former gymnast. The main character seems like the Goku of butt-bumping sports. She wants to compete and get stronger while getting rich in the process so she can support her family. Okay, so maybe that's only partially like Goku because that guy never cared about money. At least if you're going to criticize something, you should get your facts straight. Though I imagine that must be so difficult to do since you were probably triggered by those awful animated butts and boobs. And call me crazy, but it also sounded like she implied that women flirting with each other was horrible, so sorry lesbians, looks like you're not allowed to flirt with the people you're sexually attracted to without being horrible. Also, did she try to shoehorn an all anime fans or Trump supporters joke in there, or is it just me? We've increasingly seen anime that takes fan service as its subject, and not as a supplement to its subject. This isn't a hentai, and yet, in Keijo, female erogenous zones are the subject, with a thin plot shambly plastered on top. The occasional upskirt shot or full body pan is an expected, tolerable mainstay of contemporary anime. What I don't understand is why, despite cultural differences, a lot of American anime fans see Keijo and laugh it off, unmoved that, in this show, women are valued at the sum total of their body parts. I don't know if I would say that fan service has been increasing. It's been around in some form or another for a very long time, and clearly the fact that it hasn't gone away shows that there's a market for it. Pointing out that it's not hentai while saying the subject is the female body seems stupid to me, because it acts as though the only way there can be focus on female bodies is if sex is involved. Some people just like to look at bodies without the sex aspect. Now, I realize we're talking about animated characters here, so I feel like this whole topic is a bit silly because I don't watch anime for titillation. Even when there is a so-called focus on female bodies, it doesn't do anything for me. I think this is ignoring that there are other aspects to the show, though. There is build-up for conflict and character development outside of the Keijo circle, so to claim the entire focus is on the characters' bodies really says more about the writer than the series. She's focusing solely on that because, as she said herself earlier, she's ignoring the fact that there are other aspects to it and deciding to hone in on the sexualized aspect, which, by the way, didn't really feel all that sexual yet. She's saying the women are valued on the sum total of their body parts, but that's not true at all. I'd like to present a few counterpoints. I noticed that the show features women of different body types. You would think that would be something these people would praise. In addition to that, this show is based on a sport. Silly or not, it's a sports-themed show, and as we all know, sports are about competition. It takes training, dedication, mental fortitude, and skill to be good at it, so to say it's about the sum total of body parts is false. Whether you think the idea of the sport is good or not, making one up that's based around both action and goofy bodily humor is rather ingenious. In fact, I would argue it's the pure absurdity that draws a lot of people in. It's a hook to get them interested by the sheer wow factor of, what the hell am I watching? I love that she says she doesn't understand how people can just laugh it off. I'll tell you how. It's because it's not real, and it's meant for entertainment. The only person overthinking it is you. Well, until you went and wrote this piece, so I had to too. Now, before I wrap this up, I want to address two comments the author made in the comments section. I'm only going to address her replies, so if you want to see the full context, please click the archive link in the description below. My reply is that no anime should get kudos for simply giving female characters personalities. That is a low bar to clear, my friend. Just because a personality and plot are wrapped around TNA doesn't make it less infuriating that TNA are the central subjects of this show. Also, many of these female characters, it seems, were engineered specifically to titillate male viewers, a trope that bleeds into real life, where women are often valued according to how appealing they are to men. To me, Keijo doesn't come across as powerful women choosing to flaunt their sexuality, since it's so clearly written for a male audience. So there are multiple problems with this. Again, we ignore the fact that there are women out there that like to look at attractive women. No one is claiming that anyone deserves a kudos for giving a character personality. Personality is important, no doubt, but the fact that they have discernible personalities with motivations unrelated to TNA, as you put it, is a counter-argument to your claim that it's all about male titillation. Yes, they were engineered in a lab, specifically to send the male population into a constant state of arousal. Move over Viagra, we have the cure for ED, and it is Keijo. I don't know what worlds you're living in, but a large majority of people, both men and women, value others on how appealing they are to them. This is how people differentiate between friends, lovers, and trolls under the bridge. Obviously, there are other factors that are important aside from attraction, but most people are drawn in first by looks and learn more about the individual later. I cannot believe I have to explain this. It's also not fair to claim it was clearly written for a male audience because, first, even if it was, that's not a bad thing as demographics exist, and most men are attracted to women, so it stands to reason that attractive women would be an appealing factor, but it also assumes that all women share your lack of sense of humor and the same distaste you do for such things, which isn't true, because even in the comment section of this post, people were saying, "My wife and I enjoy shows like this, is that wrong?" You are not the gatekeeper of what defines proper expression of sexuality. I haven't seen Free. I will add that men are valued by their appeal to women much less than women are valued by their appeal to men, and with less tangible results like pay raises and employment opportunities, since, statistically, men are more often in positions of power over these things. This treatment of women is a part of the fiber of society, and if you're interested, there are many studies on it, because the issue of where a woman's value lies exists on a larger, structural scale. I think it's a bigger problem than it is for men, who are more readily judged by their intelligence or sense of humor. Well, men are judged on their appearance, so you're wrong. In addition to that, their usefulness is often judged on how well they can provide. If a man is in a situation where he has difficulty being a provider, good luck to him on finding a partner, because most people in society are raised to seek the societal idea of the successful individual, which more often than not equates to financial stability. She speaks as if women have no privileges, but it's far easier for a woman in a situation where she cannot be a provider to find a mate, because generally speaking, women aren't usually judged on how successful they are in the working world. Men and women have different advantages and disadvantages, so to conveniently claim the majority of women's are structural is just a way to make one more important than the other, when in fact both groups face societal issues. So checkmate, Cecilia. Well, this topic got rather heavy for just being about some random girls' sports anime. I'm not here to argue that this is the most intellectually stimulating content ever produced. It isn't. It's silly, it's outrageous, and obviously there is some sexuality thrown in there, but I don't think that makes it inherently a bad thing. There's fast-paced action, goofy over-the-top attacks, and it has a sense of humor, so I can see why it would be considered entertaining. Quite honestly, something like this would usually just go under my radar because I wouldn't take any interest in watching it. I wouldn't criticize nor praise it, I just wouldn't care, because if something doesn't interest me, I don't put any time or effort into it. There's nothing wrong with criticisms, but I'm here to criticize what I believe to be a poorly done criticism driven by a clear agenda. What gets me is when people go out of their way to put fiction on blast like this, acting as though it's somehow harming our real-life perceptions of women. Look, anyone who actually thinks women are objects only there to stimulate their sexual desires were probably predisposed to those behaviors anyway, so not watching an anime isn't going to help them. You can't just ban or change everything like this and think those things are going to go away. Sexual assault and other terrible acts all existed well before anime, and they will continue to even if it ever goes away. I'm mostly humored by the fact that I had to sit here and overanalyze a series based on anime girls bumping body parts for sport. I never expected that. Life is hilariously strange sometimes. Just a quick reminder that if you guys like what I do here, there are multiple ways to help support the channel. I have many different affiliate links posted in the description below, a Patreon account, and most recently, a Spreadshirt store with shirts featuring my logo with artwork done by one of my good friends on Twitter. Again, all the links will be below, so please be sure to check those out. If you can't do any of that or just aren't interested, it's always appreciated if you share my videos and help spread the word. As always, thanks for listening, guys. Take care. I'm the only one who can say